Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And this video we're going to be looking at one of my more mature films. It is rated R. It's definitely for the 13 and up. But it shows a good part of the chaos of a Hindu wedding. It takes place in New Dali. It revolves around an arranged marriage. So we're going to be looking at Monsoon Wedding. So again, this is rated R. There are some issues going on here. There's some scenes, and it definitely more mature for more mature audiences in this sense. So this film revolves around the wedding, particularly an arranged marriage of the daughter of an upper middle class family in New Dali. So the main characters here, I'm going to switch the IMDb page, are the father who's Lalit Verma, his wife Pimi, his niece Rhea, their daughter who's getting married, Adi, her fiance Hermit, who's from Texas. He's the son of a family friend. Verma's brother-in-law, the man who's married to his sister, whose family loaned them money, essentially, when India and Pakistan split and the Verma family lost a lot of money. He is married to Verma's sister. So I don't know why they have the same last name. Maybe because he took on the women's name or his wife's family name or not. And the other two major characters are the Verma's maid Alice and the wedding planner. So I'm going to cover each kind of story arc, and then the son of the Vermas, whose name I can't tell because there's a lot of Vermas here because it's a huge family chaotic wedding. So this film is very chaotic. There are subtitles because they switch back and forth between English and Hindi. It was filmed, this is very authentic, it was filmed by an Indian filmmaker in New Delhi. So as a white person, I'm not going to judge the authenticity of something was filmed in the country by the people of the country. So, and all the actors are Hindi. At least I think they're Hindi. Though I swear Alice is wearing a Catholic cross around her neck. So it could be the actress isn't. But moving on. So I'm going to look at each kind of story arc as it goes on. So the arranged couple is kind of interesting. They've agreed to this. They're in their mid-20s. So you see her. She's having an affair with a married producer. He's a television host. He works in TV. You first really see him. She's kind of in her. She's like sneaking in behind when they're filming. And he's basically on this kind of panel discussion, what you would see almost like on early morning television. And they have a guest that is reading off what amounts to be scripts from pornography. So that's part of the rated R part. And then they kind of make out in his office. And again, he's married. You find this out when she gets into the car with her cousin, Rhea. And her cousin's like, I don't think you're ready for marriage. Why are you doing this? Why don't you wait for love? And she's like, he's never going to leave I don't know if he's ever going to leave his wife. I'm kind of bored. And she's like, she gives off the air that she's almost kind of given up. And she's like, I might as well marry this guy my parents have picked. I'm not doing anything else. And she's obviously getting kind of older. So it's more she's resigned to this and a little bored with it. So you really get the impression early on that she doesn't care. And this does change. Because obviously she's still in love with this married boyfriend of hers until something happens. So you kind of see that. And you see them go through the engagement party where she meets him. It's not clear whether or not they've met before, though you kind of think they have at least once or twice. Obviously, he lives in Texas. So they live in New Delhi. It's a completely different world. So they have this huge engagement party. You have all the family. It's really, really chaotic. They do the exchanging of rings in this scene, and then they feed each other cake. while they're kind of sitting surrounded by family. And it's a huge kind of party atmosphere where everybody's interacting and stuff, and a lot of the guests are arriving, and it's very, very insane. And there's a lot of drinking and smoking going on. And then later in the evening, she kicks her brother out. She sneaks away from the party, and goes and calls her boyfriend. Only his wife picks up the phone, and she obviously hangs up. So that's when you get whether she's unsure. And then you're going through these ceremonies. At one point in time, the fiance calls her to meet, and he's like, she's not a morning person. She admits that. He's like, I want to get to know you. I don't know anything really about you. I kind of want to get to know you. She's like, what is on your mind? She's like, sleep. I'm not a morning person. I just want to sleep. So that's the first time. He's like, he wants to be alone with her because they're not going to have a lot of chances to be alone before they're married. And because there's ceremonies. And then you kind of go through a variety of other things. The next scene, you go through that kind of, almost looks like a hen party, only with the older women, and the older women are advising the younger bride about marriage and things. It's very fun, almost bridesmaids or bridal shower kind of atmosphere, where they're doing the henna on the hands, and kind of preparing and talking about husbands and marriage and things like that. And you have this big party going on. And then after that, after everybody goes to sleep that night, she pretends to be asleep and she sneaks off with a boyfriend. And this is kind of the turning point in her attitude toward what's going on. And so she goes off with the boyfriend. They go to a secluded spot in his car and start making out. The cops show up. Now it's pouring down rain. It's the monsoon season. They force them out of the car. They start hackling them. There are 3 cops. He gets a phone call. It's his wife. He walks away and starts trying to cover his butt because, again, he can't be caught with his mistress. The cops see the henna on her hands. They realize this is her lover, not her fiance. They start getting aggressive, and she gets really, really scared, and she's calling out. It's like, don't leave me here with them. He's walked away. He's several feet away from her, trying to cover his butt. He's not paying attention. He's waving her off, and they're hackling her, and she's terrified. They're getting aggressive. You definitely get the impression that they would rape her. They would arrest him, and they would rape her. She's able to get into the car and drive off, and he gets pissed off. This is the turning point for her. She realizes he doesn't give a crap about me. He's not protecting me. He's basically putting me at risk, and he doesn't care. So the next thing you see is she goes out privately with the fiance and chooses to confess everything. He gets mad. They get in the car because they're at a tea shop. After she reveals everything, they get in the car, drive off. He kind of has a ranting thing. He gets really, really mad at her. It's like, how could you do this? You kind of agreed to this. What are we supposed to do in front of family? And what am I supposed to say, kind of thing? And he's kind of pissed off. And they stop in front of her parents' driveway. She's upset. She's crying. She gets out of the car. She starts walking down the driveway. He gets out and apologizes to her. And he's like, you know what? I shouldn't have said that to you. I shouldn't have done this. I'm very sorry. You did not have to tell me this, and you did. And that means a lot to me. So you didn't have to say anything, but you did. And I think we can move forward from this. I think we can move beyond this. And he says, if you want to go through with this, it's entirely up to you. So he's giving her that choice. If you want to stop this, I'm not going to force you on it. And that's the turning point, really, with her. And you see their relationship start growing. And I think she hugs him. And she feels affection for him because, again, he's not turning his back on her. She did something really, really crappy. They were already engaged. And he had every right to pretty much turn his back on her and tell everybody what happened. And he doesn't. And it's like, your honesty is important to me. I'm giving you a way out. And she doesn't. And you see the affection grow between the two of them at that point. And they accidentally, like the night before the wedding, they kind of go off and kind of make out for a while. You don't really see it. You kind of have them sneaking up, and they're kind of spending more time together because she realizes this is a nice guy. This guy will actually take care of me and respect me, and I dumped the loser. So that's kind of the turning point of her story. Now we're going to jump back and look at the wedding planner and the maid, because that's the other love story that's going on. Dobie is a bit of a dick. So he's obviously of a lower class. He's the wedding planner. He's screaming at his people all the time. He's yelling into phones. He charges Verma a lot more money for waterproofing on a tent, to the point where Verma has to ask friends for a loan, again paying for his daughter's wedding. He's very much of a dick. He's smoking. He's also frequently eating the chrysanthemum flowers. No, there's no reason for this. I remember we had a guest speaker in my Violence Against Women class around the time we watched this film. She's like, everybody asks this. There's no reason for it. There's no cultural reason. It has nothing to do with anything. He's just, for some reason, eating these flowers. Nobody knows. It's a very interesting stylistic choice. But it comes up. But Dobie starts crushing on Alice, who's the Verma's maid, who's alone. She's from a faraway village. This is a job that she could get to get away from her probably dirt poor village in the middle of nowhere and like crippling poverty. And he starts kind of romancing her. He has a big crush on her, and he wants to marry her, because he talks about that's what he really wants to do. He wants a woman, a simple woman, to get married and have kind of a simple life. And that's what he wants. And yet he's still a bit of a dick. There's a scene where she's caught by his men. They see her through the window. She's putting on Audie's wedding jewelry, and they heckle her. And Dobie gets irritated, and she gets mad at him because he's not controlling his men. And eventually the men have to grovel to her because Dobie's now really, really pissed off and very, very cranky at them. And essentially their boss is in a rage because they screwed up his chances with this girl. And they have to apologize to her, and they get married. And that is actually one of the interesting parts of the film, because you see the contrast between the Audie's big, lavish, big family wedding where they're under this waterproof tent. Everybody's still kind of getting soaked. It's a huge family event. It's very loud. Everybody's dancing. Everybody's happy. And it's very, very fancy. And way Dobie and Alice get married, where they're under just a little umbrella of chrysanthemum flowers. It's pouring rain. His men are the only ones there. It's very simple. It's very isolated. They're very wet. And they're like kind of standing on a bridge kind of thing. And it's very, very different. You see the mass difference between this big family wedding and this kind of, obviously, two people who don't really have any family, or at least family that can be present. And this small little nothing of a wedding compared to the huge events that are happening with Audie's wedding. So, and then of course they come in, there's a weird scene where they show up at the wedding, because they have it on the same day, of Audie's wedding, and they're invited to come dancing, and it's kind of goofy. So that's the end of the film. All right, so now we're going to back to do one more. This is kind of a short kind of side arc, which has to do with Audie's little brother, who's about 12, 13, who's very feminine. So from a Western point of view, he looks very, very gay. He likes dancing. He's hanging out with the girls a lot. He's watching cooking shows. He doesn't seem to be attracted to females, but again, he's like 12, 13. And his father doesn't think he's masculine enough. So you see him kind of interacting in that form, where he's trying to perform a dance with another cousin of his for one of the events of the wedding. And then you have this huge argument. His father wants to send him off to boarding school to toughen him up. And yes, his father says this. So he wants to toughen him up. And because his son doesn't like football, him and his son end up having a fight in front of the mother who doesn't want her, who loves her son. This is her baby. She doesn't want him to go off to boarding school because she doesn't want to lose both her children. Because again, her daughter is going off to America. She's going to Texas. She's gotten married. She's no longer hers, essentially, anymore. So she doesn't want to lose both of her kids. She doesn't want her son to go off to boarding school. There's a huge fight. The son doesn't want to talk to his son, basically tells his father, like, I'm not going to talk to you at all, and goes and slams his door. And his, basically, mom's like, yep, I don't want to talk to you either. So she's pissed off. And he backs out of doing this dance at this event with his cousin. She tries to drag another cousin, Australian. He's come over from Australia. I think she's related to Verma's family. He's related to the wife's family. So they're not related, and they're in their late teens, or they're in their early 20s. So they're a little bit younger than the engaged couple. And there you have a little bit of flirtation with those two. And she tries to drag him to do this dance. And he doesn't. He's like, I don't want to do this. And it ends up becoming a huge kind of dance party kind of thing. All right, so now we're going to look at the final arc, and probably this is going to be the one of the reasons this is rated R. Besides, the whole future bride almost being raped by the cops situation. So this has to do with the cousin, I'm going to bring back her name here, Rhea. So during the engagement party, her uncle comes in with his wife. So this is basically her aunt and her husband. And that family, basically the uncle by marriage's family, had given money to her father and her uncle years before in their family, after the split between India and Pakistan left them broke. And so they're kind of indebted to them in an extent. But the moment she sees this Uncle Uday, I think is the name I'm going to bring up again. Uday. It's very obvious that something's up. She doesn't like him. It's very obvious she wants to stay as far away from him as possible. You get that impression. And she feels disgusted when she has to hug him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. And then you start seeing him behave interesting and kind of close to one of the other younger cousins. And I'm talking, this is a child who's like 10. She's like 9-10 years old here. And you see Rhea's reactions. Like, you see him almost flirting with this little girl. And Rhea gets really, really ticked. It's like, she doesn't want him anywhere near her. And then we jump to the night before the wedding. They're having this huge party. They had the whole dance party thing. And the older people, the bride and the groom, and basically the young people around their age, they're sitting around talking about kissing. And this young girl basically, I don't know why on earth you're making a big deal out of this. It's kind of disgusting. Like, sticks your tongue down your mouth. Well, when she says, and then she walks off to hang out by her mom. And Rhea, you see her face. It's like, what is going on? She does not like this at all. And you see this young girl, she's going and laying down her mom. She wants to go to sleep. She's 9-10 years old. It's probably late at night. And Uday comes up and he's going to take her away. Rhea stops it immediately. And it comes out that she screams at him. It's like, why? Why did you touch me? Basically, he molested me. I don't know why. I had no breasts. I was a child. And now you're doing it to her. And she's pissed. And she's screaming and yelling. And her uncle shows up. Basically, the man who pretty much raised her. Her father had died when she was younger. And her and her mother were taken in by her uncle, his brother. And he was essentially her father figure. And she's yelling at him. Not her uncle. The uncle by marriage. How could you do this? You molested me. You're going after her. You're disgusting. And essentially she blurts it all out that he had molested her when she was young and around that same age. And then she goes off with friends. And her uncle, who basically this is almost like his daughter, he doesn't know what to do. The aunt, his sister, is saying she's lying, she's unmarried, it's ridiculous, she's crazy. And then you kind of mentally to that night where he's in bed, he's crying. You realize he had talked to, you have this kind of flashback scene where you realize you have him kneeling down in front of the young girl, his young niece, and she's crying. She's with her mother, and it's obviously, you can kind of tell even without words that she's told him what had happened. You really don't know how far it went, but we're guessing it hadn't gone that far before obviously her older cousins stopped it. And he's upset. He doesn't know quite what to do, and he cries. He holds his wife, and it's like, you really see that he's troubled. And he goes to Rhea. She's gone off with friends the next morning. This is the day of the wedding. It's like, I want my family together. Please do not tear my family apart. I can't send him away because we're kind of indebted to him. And we're indebted to his family. I don't want to tear my family apart. And she eventually agrees to come back. And then you see the photographs, and the photographer actually asks her to come sit in front of him, in front of the uncle who molested her. Obviously, she wants nothing to do with him. And then they take all the photographs. They go in to basically be blessed by the ancestors, because again, this is the big wedding day. And they're praying until you have a picture of Rhea's father. And her uncle sees that, and something snaps in him. And when the child molester goes to greet the groom's family, he's like, no, stop. I can't let you do this. I can't let you represent this family. You need to go. I cannot have you here. You hurt. He's like, you need to go. It's very obvious that he always believed his niece. And his sister's like, how can you tear up the family for something so little? He's like, I don't want to hear it. Leave. And the guy basically takes off the turban, because that's what they're wearing. Again, I don't know much about any. This probably means more to people who are Hindi and know their marriage customs. But I'm assuming him taking off this turban is significant. And they leave. So he, basically, the uncle and the father of the bride chooses, it's like, nope, changed my mind, get out. Because obviously you heard it. He also feels very, very guilty. And his niece does not blame him. It's like, you couldn't have done anything. I didn't tell anybody. You couldn't do anything. How were you to know? But so that is that big scene. And then you have the final wedding scene. And they're bringing the bride and groom, and everybody's dancing. And that's essentially the end of this film. So you have a couple of these weird little things going on. Again, this film is very, very chaotic. I had to it was hard to try to get some of the idea who's who. It's very, very insane. There's a lot of music, there's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of yelling and screaming. It's very, very chaotic. It's a very fun film. It's very, very fast paced. This film does not get slow. But again, you have the child molestation, you have the near rape of the bride, a lot of smoking, a lot of drinking, a lot of swearing going on. That's why this is rated R. It's still a really good film. I still would recommend it, particularly for the 13 and up, maybe a little older, depending on your child's maturity and interest level. But if you're looking for something that will have an idea of maybe the chaos of Hindu culture, this is not a Bollywood film from what I was able to research. Bollywood films are not as raw as this. So they don't show as much of this kind of chaos and family disagreements kind of thing from what I was able to read. I'm not familiar with Bollywood films. This is one of two that I think I'm 2 or 3 that I'm familiar with that take place in India or the United States involving this culture. So, and the other one of them is Bend 'Em Like a Beckham, which is a weird romance thing with Keira Knightley and somebody else. But moving on to this film, highly recommended. It's a good look at the chaos of the culture. You get an interesting look at New Dali and how crowded and busy and insane it is. And you get a look at the interesting family dynamics. It's kind of a positive look at an arranged marriage because these two, again, they agree to it. You don't see what happens, obviously, afterwards because it ends with that big wedding party and the bride and groom are like massively dressed up and decked out in all sorts of things, particularly in red and yellow. So it is a really, really good film. So that's it for this review. Again, this is definitely for the older crowds. Educational in the fact that it's a good look at Hindi culture and how the old and new traditions are intermixing, and you have the moving between English and Hindi going on kind of thing. So Again, really, really good film. Highly recommend it. But again, it's rated R and it's kind of for more mature audiences. So that's it for this review. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. Normally I do younger kid stuff. I do family friendly films. I do a lot of kids book reviews. We are a secular homeschooling family, so I do a sprinkling of homeschooling stuff. I have a 2-year-old, so that's to come in the future when we do a little bit more. I do have a whole collection of homeschooling law videos and a little bit of travel videos. This is being shot in September of 2021. I'm hoping by the time this is available to the public that we'll have more travel videos on here. But right now I just have a couple because pandemic. We're not doing that much traveling. So again, like and subscribe if you like what you see and check out the rest of what I've got. Thank you.